Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so I'm just eating a meal here and I'm just glancing around the NBA and I just felt compelled to turn on the camera impulsively. I ain't even done eating. But, yeah, first of all, the Lakers are in the 8th seed right now. I don't know how I should feel about that because things are fluctuating so fast, it doesn't really matter. To be honest with you, by the time you react to it, it's changed already. But because the New Orleans Pelicans were able to beat the Los Angeles Clippers tonight, um, they were able to get another notch ahead of us. So we're at 39 and 38. They are now at 40 and 38 or something like that. 40 and 38, I believe, is what it is. So we got some work to do to try to climb back into that 7th seed um, by beating the Houston Rockets tomorrow and trying to tie ourselves up. And maybe some other things could shake out that'll help us as well. But the other side of that, of course, is the Dallas Mavericks. Now, that is kind of what compelled me to turn on the camera. I'm like, look at the stats up there. Christian Wood, 3 of 5 with like 15 minutes against the Miami Heat. 3 of 5. I don't know what's going on. How did they turn Christian Wood into this? How? I understand that he's not the greatest defender. In fact, he might not be very good. But you're the home of Dirk Nowitzki. I ain't never seen Dirk Nowitzki guard anybody, ever. So him not being able to defend should not be a deal breaker for the Dallas Mavericks. None of y'all defend. Nobody defends. If anything, the Dallas Mavericks should be trying to devise a way to run their offense fully. Then, I mean, why play defense? With their personnel, they only got like 3 or 4 people to actually even defend. They need to be trying to run the score up to 180 points every night. And why they don't run a system that allows for them to do something like that or try to get the most out of their scoring is beyond me, man. I'm serious. I don't understand it. This Jason Kidd is one of the greatest basketball minds of my generation, of my lifetime. I don't question his basketball IQ or anything like that, but I do question the motive of the franchise. You know, what exactly they're trying to accomplish by doing certain things. I just think it's some weird stuff happening right now with the Mavericks, honestly, and I don't have an understanding of what it is that would make it so that they would have a game like this on the road against the Heat and not get anything out of their center position. I looked at what's the guy's name, man? The center that they use, Powell, Josh Dwight Powell. I don't know what's going on there, but they gave him 15 minutes, hardly any production. And I'm just like, I don't understand how they think they're going to go up against Bam Adebayo and those guys and have any success whatsoever without size. I don't know what they're thinking. Now, you can have Kyrie launch a bunch of shots, have, Luka go for 40, but at the end of the day, if you don't respect rebounding the ball, if you don't respect certain things that clearly need to be respected, you're not going to be able to beat anybody. And that's what it is. Dallas, I told everybody, Dallas is not built to succeed. And I think most people are worried in a sense that they are worried about Mark Cuban not re-signing Kyrie Irving. I heard this conversation earlier today as well. They were saying, he's in a tough spot because Kyrie is somebody who, if they let him walk, who are they going to fill the cap space with? It's basically going to be Luka and a bunch of G League guys. And my thing is, yeah, it may look that way, but you can do something with that cap space if Kyrie walks, and I think that's what they have in mind. I don't think that they were really thinking about Kyrie staying when they made the trade, and I told you guys that upon trade. I was like, look, the elephant in the room here for me is they could care less if Kyrie comes off the books. Because what the reality is, they could take his $36 million and try to make trades to bring themselves some role players that'll help their situation. And a lot of things could open up between now and then that will make $36 million very lucrative in a trade situation. I don't know why people think free agency is the only way to spend cap space. It's not. It's totally not. And there are always teams looking to dump a contract on you and maybe willing to pay you to take it. I look at a guy like Julius Randle. If things don't go right in New York this year, they have a chance to be really, really special. But they also have a chance to free themselves of some cap space at the end of this season because they have some contracts that I'm sure they would love to get rid of and a bunch of picks that they can dangle to try to get rid of those contracts. And I'm pretty sure they will do that if things go completely left in these playoffs with them having such a high upside team and a lot of young players that have yet to be paid. So this is a situation where I'm like, look, if I'm Dallas, Julius is from Dallas. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him. And I know he's not the greatest defensive player either, but I'm bringing him to us, and I'm putting him next to Luka Doncic, and I'm gonna make that happen. If for some reason Kyrie's out of here, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna immediately either do that, or I'm gonna go try to find me a contract that I like. Maybe try to find a Zach LaVine or somebody like that to bring to Dallas. But I'll tell you this: if they bring in multiple pieces, or if they trade to try to get some draft picks if they don't already have their own, I think that'd probably be a good idea too. Just tank it for the next year or two. But see, the problem is you got Luka in the balance, and he may not go for that. That's the biggest problem that they have. Because Luka is in a space where he's unhappy, and the object of the game is to not lose him. So I think the best course of action is to do what makes the most sense for the overall franchise, without trying to keep him at all costs. Because in trying to keep him at all costs, what you're likely going to do is fall into more mistakes. Jalen Brunson, I know a lot of people have got on their case for not signing Jalen Brunson. I don't know that they could have signed Jalen Brunson to anything that made any sense for their franchise. Because the reality is, his dad was over there in New York the whole time waiting for him, and they had been planning this probably before he even got in the league. So it was going to cost a ridiculous amount of money to keep him from going to New York, especially for multiple years, because that's ultimately what the plan was. So they were basically hijacked, in my opinion. They never had a chance to keep that dude. What they should have done, as soon as he signed, declined whatever the extension was to trade him. But they ended up going to the Western Conference Finals that year. I'm sure they don't regret that. But now you look at where they're at, they should have traded him. They should have traded him, try to recoup some value for that piece. So that's kind of where you look at, and say, okay, that's where they could have did some things differently. But there are always things they can do differently and better. And not investing in real centers is a big mistake for the Dallas Mavericks. I just think that the center position has been neglected, and it's a philosophy issue. But just because you've neglected the position and don't think it's as important doesn't mean that it's not important. It may not be the focal point of what is going on down there, but it's still a very important position to have filled for your roster. And I think that's what's gotten lost in translation. I think people think they don't need centers anymore. No, you need a center. He just doesn't need to be the most talented player necessarily. And that's the difference. It's like they're used to the centers being the Ewings, the Robinson, Shaq, and all these different guys all over throughout time as being the focal point of the offense and the focal point of the team just in general. So now it's like, okay, you've gone from one extreme to the next. Now they're trying to phase the big man out. But there are a lot of basketball people who don't actually value the center position, and it translates to them losing. It translates to the team being mediocre. It translates to stuff like Dallas. So it's like, nah, that's a bad way of looking at it. Just because everybody's been shooting the ball does not mean you can get away with not having rebounders and shot blockers as weak side help guys and stuff like that. You need that stuff more than probably anything else most of the time to keep yourself involved in basketball games, whether the shot is going to be made or not from behind the arc or mid-range. This is what you can control: the boards, your free throws, and how your effort goes on the defensive end. Shots are either going to make or miss. You can have the greatest shooter of all time. He'll go 1 for 18. You know what I mean? That kind of thing can happen. A shot is either going to go in or not. So in situations like that, the best thing you can do for yourself as a franchise is to secure all the things that are absolutely securable. Size, rebounding, all that, like I already said. So that's what I understand, man. Control what you can control, and the rest is left up to chance. And so that's what it comes down to for me. Now I want to move on because I saw some other things that kind of were head scratches to me. The Clipper game. What really went wrong there on their end is they turned the ball over quite a bit. And I didn't see the highlights, so everything's out of context. For all I know, it wasn't that bad of a deal. For all I know, it wasn't as I see it in my mind's eye. But what I see on the stats is Norman Powell with 6 turnovers. Everybody else with either 1 and Kawhi with 2. That's it. Everybody else did not turn the ball over. He had 6 of his own. I don't have any. I'm not down on Norman Powell. I'm not trying to single him out for turning the ball over. I don't follow his game to know if this is a problem or not. I'm not saying anything like that. All I'm saying is when I look on that depth chart and I see Boston get no minutes, Coffee get no minutes, and I look up at the situation for their team And I see the only thing that really went wrong is they turned the ball over. And I look up, and it's Norman Powell who turned the ball over, and those kids didn't get no minutes. I'm just like, yo, this is a philosophy difference thing that you're going to always run into with BDF 44. I don't value these guys when they get to a certain age and they can't perform a certain way, man. And I'm not saying Norman's one of those guys, because he's actually not. Let me make that very clear. He's actually not. But because they got those other shooting guards, and he's a shooting guard, I think the priority should be to play those guys up to value. And I say this all the time, so I'm not going to get into that spiel and bore you guys with more of the same content. But I just think this is yet another example of that. Listen, Norman is dope. He's still got a lot left if he's healthy, but he doesn't find himself as healthy as you'd like him to be, which is why the importance of developing Coffee and Boston and those guys is more important to me than playing him. He going to get his. When he's out there and he's hot, he's going to get his. But what you got to do is try to find a way to be a deep enough team so that you can withstand the injuries that he and Kawhi and PG and all the other guys are going to have. Is if you keep on finding yourself running into these injuries and then you keep playing these fresh players that you never run, you know what I mean? They're not going to be very good. And the only reason why they're not very good is because you don't play them, because you be foregoing opportunities to play them so you can play these old guys. I mean, it's just like... And then you find yourself without value. You end up trading players that you don't want to trade for prices you don't want to trade them for. And they never see the correlation between this and that. It's like, yo, play those guys that are not valuable, man. And play them up to value. And let those guys that have already been in the league for a million years, let them go, man. Let them move further down the depth chart unless they prove they can still perform at the level they used to. You know what I mean? They're fat and happy, and most importantly, got a lot of mileage on their legs. And it makes absolutely no sense when they are prone to go down because of it. You leaning on players that you ain't been developing the whole time because you want to lean on them. That don't make no sense to me. It never made any sense to me. And now that I have a voice on this channel, I'm trying to make it very clear to everybody else that it translates to losing. It translates to losing. The Clippers would be a much better basketball team if they would just switch around a few things and develop a couple of these guys and just live with their mistakes, man. That's it. You gotta live with young players' mistakes. You cannot overreact to a young player's mistake, because the only way they're not gonna make those mistakes is if you keep on playing them. But if you never play them, they're definitely gonna make that mistake the next time you call their number. It's the same thing I used to say about Wenyen Gabriel early on in the season. It's like, how much better do we think he's gonna get if we never play him? You wait until you have to use him, and by then, what does he have for you when he's never been playing? So it's the same thing I'll say about Max Christie now on my team. It's like, yo, what if we end up needing this kid and we ain't been using him all this time? Stop doing this, NBA. And so the Clippers, man, they didn't help themselves none by losing that basketball game. They fell to 6th place, I believe, and they're like a game and a half above where we're at. So we're hoping to send them down and rise to the top, man. New Orleans is taking care of business, but I tell you, when looking at New Orleans, they beat those Clippers, but I was not impressed. I was not impressed. And the reason why I say I'm not impressed is because I see B.I. with 8 assists. And then the next person with the highest number of assists is like Larry Nance on their bench with a 4. I'm like, yo, no wonder B.I.'s almost had to get triple doubles once a week. They don't have a single soul facilitating on that team other than him. And he's got to go out there and get his own shot too. And then try to make plays for people like Valanciunas and Troy Murphy. Somebody has got to relieve that dude of his primary duties of facilitating the basketball while Alvarado is out. They need to get Alvarado back, and I think that team needs to invest in yet another point guard. Maybe start playing Kira Lewis more minutes and let him do a little more facilitating duties. I don't know, but y'all need some point guard help right now, because B.I. can't be going for 10 assists every night trying to get everybody involved and doing everything in regards to scoring. It's just going to be too much for him, in my humble opinion. Especially going into the playoffs, if that's the role y'all want him to have. He's an excellent player, but it's not going to work. That ain't going to be enough. He's going to have to do that every night, and that's not reasonable to ask him to do that every night. So that's what I see there. New Orleans is a team that's got some issues with that particular thing. And when Alvarado gets back, like I said, they'll be back in order. Zion passes more than people think, so he'll definitely help with that. But yeah, as long as they're down Zion and Alvarado, B.I. is gonna have to be a quasi point guard, LeBron-ish type of entity. He's gonna have to do that. He's got to be Luka or something out there. He's got to make plays for everybody, man, and himself. So yeah, man, that's what I'm seeing there, and they're winning games. So we'll see if he carries that forward. what else is there to talk about? There's so much going on, man. The Lakers, the free throw shooting conversation. I was listening to Garcino, and everybody wants to make the argument that we're shooting the free throw twice as much as the next highest team, but nobody wants to say that we're shooting the ball less than anybody else. We're shooting the three less, y'all. So that is definitely going to translate into more of what it is that you see than probably anything that people kind of want to bring into the conversation. Now, I'm the first person to tell you that I think the NBA has a problem with officiating, with rules and all of that. I've been making a point to make that conversation something that we talk about all the time on this channel. So that's not going to be something that surprises anybody when they hear me say that. But as it pertains to why the Lakers are getting to the free throw line, well, there's an actual explanation that doesn't have anything to do with the game being rigged. And that is what our specific guards are good for, which is driving the basketball. When you consider that a lot of that stat was accumulated throughout the beginning and the half of the season, you got to consider LeBron James, Dennis Schroeder, and Russell Westbrook and how much they actually drive the basketball. Dennis Schroeder is one of the guys that drive the basketball the most in the entire league. LeBron James is one of the guys that drive the basketball the most in the entire league. And then you're talking about Russell Westbrook. I mean, come on. You know what it is. And then you got to consider the fact that other players like Austin Reeves, now he drives to the rim as much as anybody else. And I think that's a byproduct of being on this team. Kind of taught him how to do that. That's what we want him to be. And so then you got to consider Anthony Davis and just the sheer understanding that he's going to get his calls. And then you got to work into the equation a new guy like D'Angelo Russell. He's likely going to get his calls. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of things that go into it, coupled with the fact that we focus our entire offense on driving at the rim. And we get our calls. And a lot of teams settle for jump shots a lot more than us. A lot of teams do. And, we pride ourselves on having three-point discipline here. We don't shoot the ball at nauseum and living and dying with jump shots. We understand that was never our strength when we put this team together. And I said it at the beginning of the season. I told everybody, I said, I think this team can do something very special in the paint because of the type of players we have. We ain't going to be able to shoot worth a dang, and that was before the trade, of course, but we would be able to almost break records driving at the rim. I said that the second preseason game, when I was clear on what it is that we had. Like, we can drive, and probably break records in the paint. Well, it hasn't translated to us breaking records in the paint, but it has translated to us breaking records at the line. So, same difference. But it did have that effect because that's the type of players that the Los Angeles Lakers put on this team. It's the way we've constructed our team to be able to fight without being able to acquire shooting early on. So, early, when I say early in like the first 3 games, I don't think we really understood that. And we were shooting threes like we didn't have any sense. And I was cussing them out like, get some three-point discipline within your mindset. You don't have three-point shooters. You know what I mean? None of y'all can shoot like that. So drive at the rim. That's what we're functioning to do. And do it all game long. And you're going to be successful, wildly successful. And so, here we are. It's exactly what our team has done. We understand ourselves to the fullest, and we picked up some shooters on top of it. So now, we're going to ride that model home. We're going to drive at the rim all the way to the championship if we can get there. And, hopefully the whistles continue to blow. With all this information out there about us getting to the line so much, I hope there's not a reactionary circumstance where the referees stop calling the whistle to us when they see it. That's what I'm considering at this moment. It's like, this discrepancy is ridiculous, but do you not see the history as well? I mean, did you see the Boston game? Some of these games we've lost because referees didn't call calls. It's not like we've been sitting up here happy with the referees all year long. We haven't. As a matter of fact, we've been complaining a lot. And it's not because we just see ourselves getting to the line twice as much and we're too stupid to understand that. It's because a lot of times they don't be calling the calls they should call for us. And maybe, just maybe, there should be something looked into all of it as a whole. So, I'm one to believe that they're not rising us up to give us the trophy. If they're trying to rig us anywhere, it's to drop us. I have that belief. I'm not of the belief that they be just getting, let's just get the Lakers to the championship. No. They're trying to get the Lakers to a point. They're probably trying to lead us to slaughter. So it's one of them situations where, like, as a Laker fan, I'm not amused by them doing anything in regards to fixing anything. I want games to be very much as they are supposed to be without any extras. But at the same time, it's like, look, the stat is the stat. If we're driving and they're calling it, that's what it is. Drive more. Drive more and see if you get the results. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. And then that'll tell a better story if the rest of this league just stops shooting so many threes. That will help them. If the league would just cut down their threes and drive a little more, maybe they'll see what it is I've been saying for the last couple of years. That driving gets people off the floor. It gets jump shooters off the floor. You know what I mean? That's what it really comes down to. You're going to foul those guys, and they're going to get foul trouble, and they have to sit down. No more jump shots. So that's really what it is, man. The Lakers understand that. They understand that fully. And that's what it is. So that's what I wanted to bring to the table as well. I think there was something else I wanted to share, some thoughts with you guys. I don't know what it is. Oh, the collective bargaining information on the agreement that has been agreed upon earlier today. There's going to be an in-game tournament of some sort. In-season tournament, rather. I don't know to what degree. But they're going to add some type of $500,000 a player reward. Not reward, but prize for being part of the winning team. So I think that can make some incentive for guys to really be a part of it. I don't know if it'll have some seeding implications or tiebreaker implications. Who knows what it's going to ultimately come down to, but I do know it has some cash attached to it. That's one aspect, and others are going to be released to us as we go forward. There's plenty of information that has yet to be released to the public in regards to how this agreement actually shapes up by the language, and also it's one of those situations where they're probably going to continue to I think everything's been agreed upon, but I'm pretty certain it's fluid in regards to certain things. It's still new. Everything's just been agreed upon, so I'm pretty sure there's still some things that need to be shaved out and smoothed out within that agreement. That's just how things tend to go at times. So we'll see what the NBA decides to do. We know that they have a mutual opt-out within the 6th year, even though this is a 7-year agreement. So I think that's really curious, since they're basically saying it's a 6-year agreement, unless we love it, that kind of thing. So okay, cool. So yeah, man, I'm watching the NBA as a whole. I made a Knicks video earlier that I encourage everybody to check out, where I pretty much look at the Knicks as a team that could, if they put it all together, could really contend the Eastern Conference. I really think that they got a tall task against the Cleveland Cavaliers, but the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to have to stay out of foul trouble. Just like we said, they're going to have to keep those players on the floor because their bench, I don't think their bench is built to defeat the Eastern Conference. Their starters are built for that, but their bench, no, they're going to have to develop that bench. They're going to have to do some serious reconstruction of that thing if they want it to be at the level that they believe themselves to be. That's just what it is. There's too many teams out there with multiple contributors in the areas where they have none. And that's what it really comes down to. I think a lot of people look at the top heaviness of certain teams and say, oh, their first 6-7 guys are going to kill it. But what I'm telling you is that works in one game. It's less likely to work in a series, because what you need is to be able to have interchangeable pieces. What you need is to be able to have injury support. What you need is to be able to have players that keep you out of foul trouble, guys who can contribute, guys who know what they're doing, guys who fit one another. And these benches, a lot of these benches have been neglected. And so when it comes down to them having to go to those benches, that's when you're going to see those leads disappear. That's when you're going to see them teams drop. And it's going to happen. I think a lot of owners, a lot of GMs, I think they roll the dice in regards to that. Oh, it's not going to happen. We're not going to need to see our bench. We just shorten our bench. That does not work when you got teams that are using their full bench. It doesn't work. You can try to shrink your bench, but it's I'm telling you, that's the old NBA. That's not where you're at. The old NBA, the whole league did that. So you would expect it from team to team to team. Everybody's only using 8 guys. When you got a team like the Kings that's going to use 15 guys in the playoffs, that foul trouble situation, that the energy, the fatigue, legs and stuff like that go. I know what I'm talking about. You need depth in 2023. You need it. If your last 3 guys are guys you do not play, your last 4 guys are guys you do not play, that makes a difference to me. I'm holding it against you big time. So don't have no scrubs on the back of your bench. Don't do it. Don't call yourself a contender and you got dudes on the back of your bench that you don't trust. Because you're gonna run into a team that doesn't have that problem, and you're gonna get in some real trouble throughout the course of a series, in my humble opinion. It's not just about injuries. That's the problem. It's like a lot of people say, oh, they don't get injured, they're going to be fine. No, they won't. No. You don't understand. They got to sit down. They're going to have to sit down. And when they do bring some of those dudes in, if they're getting outclassed, it just is what it is. You're going to be asking that superstar to hurry up and get back on that floor. He only get to sit for 5 minutes as opposed to 8 because the team that he has down there ain't so great. So I'm telling people, I know that you can get away with it in some cases. Maybe the team that wins the championship ultimately makes me look foolish by having a real top-heavy team that makes it somehow. But I just don't see that in my mind's eye. I don't see it. At the end of the day, this foul trouble is a real thing. Injury risks are a real thing, and it does rear its ugly head in the playoffs at the end of a damn 82-game season when you're going deep into stressful playoff games. It's just injuries are going to be something that happen, and when they do, you had better have the talent on the back of your bench to make it make sense. So that's what I see coming, man. That's why I have so much belief in a team like my own. The Lakers and the Kings, the Knicks. I look at those teams as deep, like actually deep. Not fake deep like a lot of these teams. Oh, that's a deep team. No. That dude is done. That dude is done. You just don't see him as done, and that's why you think they're deep. That team is done. They're shallow because you're misevaluating talent in a lot of cases, thinking these old 12-year, 13-year guys are good. They're not good. They need to be drowned out by young players. That's it. God's honest truth. And so that's what I see there, man. Some of these teams that people think are really, really deep, like the Bucks, the Celtics, the Warriors. Nah, they ain't deep. They top heavy. You look on the back of that bench. How many of them dudes you really trust? Nah, they ain't that deep. The Clippers. Clippers ain't that deep. I heard somebody say the Clippers are the deepest team in the league. How? They don't use Boston. They don't use Coffee. They don't use DiBiase. They got a bunch of dudes they don't use. You know there are teams out there that have those roster spots filled with players that they use in rotation every day. You can't go up against those teams and think you're going to take your Clipper team against those teams and have any success in a playoff series. Nah, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? I'm telling you, teams that ain't got no depth ain't going nowhere. That's what time it is. I'm telling you. Teams ain't got no depth ain't going nowhere. Phoenix, I think that they can find depth because I think some of those players on their bench can overachieve. I look at some of those guys and say they're better than they look. They're going to get better from here. So if they can turn into what they're going to be, the team is a lot deeper than they appear to be. They got the size on the bench, stuff like that. So there are things that can happen for them that can make you feel like they can still do things in Phoenix. That's what I'm saying. I don't think their bench sucks as bad as it looks like it does. I think it's actually the opposite. But that doesn't necessarily mean it translates to being a very good bench, like it may need to be, to withstand Booker and KD's potential injuries. Nah, it ain't. It's definitely not. Chris Paul's potential injuries? No. And so I'm not overly a believer in Phoenix. I think Phoenix has a good chance of doing good things, but to say they're my favorite to come out of the Western Conference, nah, they're not. They're not right now. Just don't see it. I don't see it. And that's why I tell you guys, like, depth is a thing I'm looking at, and I truly believe my team is probably the deepest team in the West. The problem is we just don't use our players like we're supposed to. That's it. You know what I mean? We don't always have the rotations on the floor that best showcase our strengths. But when you consider the players that are contributors, guys that can step into other situations and do more for them than they do for us, we got those guys all over the roster. Up and down the roster. The whole team. And so that's where I'm at with it. It's just the problem is it's too many shooting guards and not enough centers. You got too many power forwards and not enough bigs and actual centers. Basically, centers need to be the focus for this team going into off season. So that's really it, man. I just wanted to come up here and sing the praises of my team, tell you guys a little more of what I was thinking, finish this bowl of oatmeal that I'm eating down there, and just give you guys what I had to give. And there's more. There's a lot more. But I think I'll cut it off here and call it an evening. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching.